A single man, an ex-footballer and a TV host with the BBC, Gary Linekar, suspended by the BBC from his own football show for breaching the BBC's so-called line of political impartiality, has forced the BBC to eat humble pie. Correction, shoved the BBC's face in humble pie. After suspending him, they were forced to take him back on his terms, even tendering an apology of sorts to him because the rank and file of the BBC supported Gary Linekar. This case made national and international headlines. We in India, of course, are delighted by the turn of events. And why should not we be? The same rank and file of the BBC, the same set of producers and program executives and bureaucrats of the BBC had closed ranks some time back to back and promote that by now infamous Modi documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots. They had upheld the screening of a tissue of lies in the documentary as journalistic autonomy and a test case of press freedom. And yet, when it came to one of their own, and not the brown lot in the subcontinent, look at the hypocrisy at work in the Gary Linekar case. Where was press freedom when Gary Linekar was suspended when he chose to comment on the British government's decision to stop all migrant boats from depositing their human cargo at British shores? And again, where was the morality of the impartiality so-called rule of the BBC when the organization wilting under protest from other anchors and rank and file in the BBC reinstated Gary Linekar back to his anchor role? Both sets of actions in both instances completely expose the double-dealing nature of the BBC. And pertinent to us, did the same rank and file and the bureaucrats care about the massive protests of brown British citizens of Indian origin outside BBC headquarters against that BBC documentary on the 2002 Gujarat riots? Should not then they have listened to the voice of the massive protest and shut down that documentary on the Gujarat riots? Fact of the matter is that the BBC could not have cared less for the brown children of a lesser God. We all know what the BBC in reality actually stands for. But for those still not clear of the neo-colonial mindset of this Save the World news broadcaster and its priorities, I bring to you in this episode the example of Sahib, BBC and Ghulam syndrome of the BBC. But before I do that, a very warm welcome to all viewers of the CAA show. CAA, as all of you know, is Conversations and Analysis. And my name is Juggi Bhasin. To watch this video podcast, press the big red subscriber button on your screen, and subscription is of course completely free. The BBC has been operating on the unwritten principle of the Sahib, BBC and Ghulam principle, especially in the subcontinent and more pointedly on India for a long time. According to this principle, the BBC has still to shake off the master-slave or the Sahib and the Ghulam principle when it comes to India. The syndrome is of course never completely spelt out or find written or oral mention. But the contours of the syndrome are evident in program after program, news clip after news clip on India. Pick out any year, any month in the last few decades on the BBC's focus on India matters, and there is one common theme running through it all. And that theme is that India is a noisy and a colorful democracy, but an imperfect one. Indians after independence have blundered along. The country is riven with caste, class and communal strife. Its foreign policy initiative is misplaced and its rulers are out of sync with the aspirations of the common citizen. In short, the subliminal theme of the BBC on India is that Indians are not fit to govern themselves. And these condescending, negative, and humiliating commentaries have turned positively hostile ever since Modi came to power in 2014. I honestly can't remember a single positive coverage or a feel-good story by the BBC on India in the last 8 years. Forget positivity. Its present-day coverage on India has descended and degraded to outright lies, made-up stories of Hindu right-wing rule in India where minorities are being made to suffer. This brand of coverage is as true as the Gary Linekar lie that British policies on migrant boats resemble those of Nazi Germany of the 30s. Hypocrisy, a proclivity to peddle lies, runs deep among the anchors and the rank and file in the BBC. But hubris awaits all such organizations and lies peddlers. In the new equation in the BBC on Sahib, BBC and Ghulam, the rank and file in the BBC and its anchors, which to the last man are all woke left liberal crowd, have become the new Sahibs of the BBC. They only want to peddle their brand of wokeism to the entire world. And the babus of BBC, its policymakers and bureaucrats are the new Ghulams who are unable to face the onslaught of this woke crowd, as was so evident in the Gary Linekar case. Now it is our turn to put up our feet and watch with a smile the various internecine battles breaking out in the BBC. Go for it, boys. Keep up the good fight. And so on this note, I come to the end of this episode of the CAA Show. I hope you really enjoyed this particular episode. You like our show, do subscribe to us. And on this note, it's goodbye and cheers from my end.